Welcome to the Disability Adventures podcast. I'm Andrea Anderson.
And I'm Chip Dodd from Team Disability.
All right, here we are with another race ramble. Andrea and I just did a race this weekend called the Winter Warmup 5-hour race, hosted by Grit Adventure Racing, a new company by our friends Nick Herf and Jesse Tubb. Were you pretty excited about it?
Yeah, I mean, we've done a couple of very short races lately, and it's just super fun. So, 5 hours was just enough to drive a couple of hours away and see a new part of the country. We've been up that way, but not in that specific location. The race was at the Frederick Watershed in Maryland, and it was really cool. It was rocky. You can see if you're watching on YouTube, you can see our backdrop is from the race, and it's rocky, forested area with some big features.
Very
Not a
steep.
ton of elevation, but steep elevation.
Yep.
Yeah. And so when it was just a bike and foot race. So the race itself started with a prologue, and it was kind of cool. Do you want to tell them about the prologue since you
Yeah,
did so much better at it than
because
we
it
did?
was a tough prologue. Yeah, so I'm sorry, back up just a tiny bit. This area is near Frederick, Maryland, which is like just a little bit northwest of DC. Like I think it's like an hour outside of DC. Had a really good turnout. It was like something like 70 people or teams or something like that. It was pretty cool. Yeah, so they came up with a neat prologue because obviously with a 5-hour race, you really want to spread the teams out, especially when we start on mountain bike. You don't want this huge peloton of bikes bombing down very rocky, slick trails because we're going to get into this in a minute, but it was raining the entire time. Um, but so they had this creative way of breaking everybody up, which you had to run down, I don't know, let's call it, I don't know, whatever, 400 or 500 meters. And then there were maps on the ground, and you had to look at the map and memorize 3 checkpoints. I mean, you could stop and pull out a pen and paper and write it on your maps if you want, but most of us just did our best with our like early onset Alzheimer's and tried to remember where these points were and went bounding off into the woods. So I got turned around a little bit because of all the other teams, but I pretty quickly figured it out and then reconfigured, and I probably wasted, 60 seconds. How'd you do on the prologue?
Thanks for asking, Chip. I appreciate that so much. Well, so we got the maps the night before and the rules of travel. So we knew there was going to be a memory O, and I was immediately concerned because my memory is terrible. And I proved it. Yeah, I was the second to last to get done with the prologue, and I did have to go look at the maps again. And so I even took the time to put some points on the map, but this is what I thought would work. I had a ballpoint pen and I had my maps in a plastic bag, a thick plastic bag. And so I kind of drew on the plastic bag as much as you can draw on a plastic bag. And I put them where they're supposed to be. And then guess what happened? The map shifted, and then the dots were no longer where they were supposed to be. And of course, the scale was different too. Like the maps on the ground were really zoomed in, and where I put them on my map was a 1 to 24,000 scale map. And anyway, so that didn't work. I run off, I get a couple of points, and then I get flustered because teams are going all sorts of ways, and I'm like, why are they doing that? Like, and then I come back around to a point that I'd already been to. I was like, I think I got that number before. Like, I better just go on back. So I went all the way back to look at the map again and got the point. But anyway, that's a long way to say there was a prologue.
Yep.
And then there was a bike, and there were 9 points that you could choose to get either on the way to the TA or after the trek section. So, yeah, so like the west side of the park were the bike points pretty much, and the east side of the park were the trek points. And so, you get as many bike points as you want. You go to the TA, Then you transition to foot. You get as many foot points as you want, and then you go back and get as many more bike points as you have left, or if you have time for, and go to the finish. So it was a cool design that way. I really enjoyed having the flexibility of doing what you wanted to do when. Now, of course, it did make more sense to do some things first, in my opinion. I don't know, but it did give a lot of choice. So that was pretty
There
cool.
was a lot of choice because again, it basically was prologue, bike over to the trek section, do the trek section, bike back, but you could get any of the bike points either out or back. So you could do it clockwise or counterclockwise. You could be like, okay, it's raining less now. It's supposed to rain harder later. Maybe I want the bike points ahead of time because it's easier to trek in the rain. Some
Did you
people,
know if the rain was going to
I
change?
knew that the rain was going to get progressively worse through the day.
Oh,
So
I must not have known that.
I definitely knew I was doing all the bike as early as I could, and I left 2 bike points because they were logically on the way home. I'm not sure if that's how everybody did it. I know a lot of teams were skipping points on the way back because I think they were late or just tired and cold and wet. Yeah.
Well, I'm still recovering from my broken ankle, so I thought my plans were to do as much of the biking, do all of the biking basically, and then see how much I could handle on the trek. So, although another cool thing about the race is that there were different point values for all of the points. So the CPs had either 1, 2, or 3 points you would earn by getting that checkpoint. And so that made me think, I'm probably going to be um, just rushed at the end. I don't want to be worried about getting the best points on the bike. So there were 2 points that did make a lot of sense to get on the way back, but one of them was a 2 pointer. And I thought, I gotta get that one, and I don't want to be worried that I'm going to miss it. So I did go a little bit like of an out and back just to get that one 2 pointer. Then I got all the rest of those bike points with the exception of one that made a lot of sense to get on the way home if you had time. But anyway, that was my plan, and to get as many trek points as I could and leave half an hour of time to get from the TA to the finish. That was my plan.
That was your plan.
And of course, I was thinking I might not clear it. And, I chose also my trek route with that in mind, not Chip's plan. Because, of
Well,
course,
in the race brief, they said they thought that it was clearable. And so at that point, I don't care about the points. I'm just gonna go, I'm gonna do my strategy, and if I run out of time, I'll start cutting stuff. But my strategy was you're clearing the course.
such an
Yeah,
easier strategy.
it's way easier. But I mean, I was kind of watching the line, like I'm still kind of ahead of schedule. I'm still ahead of schedule, so I'm gonna keep clearing. And so, but at any moment, our friends at Broad Run Off Road, their chain broke, and then all of a sudden your whole strategy gets blown up. Now you're like, okay, what points do are we able to get given that we're walking our bike or whatever? I mean,
Yeah.
so it's like you set a strategy. What is, like, isn't it Mike Tyson or one of those guys? It's all a great plan until you get punched in the face, you know.
Yeah. And then you bite someone's ear.
And then you bite somebody's ear off, or I can't remember. I don't know. I'm not a boxing guru, but
Because you're the
basically,
wrong person.
yeah, you can make a plan all you want, and then first contact with the enemy, and the plan changes. So
Yeah.
either way,
Well, and we're going to go into more detail because that's what we do. We'll probably beat it to death. Even though it was a 5-hour race, it was still a race. It was a lot of fun,
first of the year,
a lot of chance for learning. But spoiler alert, Chip was the only team to clear.
team solo,
Team
yeah,
solo.
solo.
Overall, Chip
Overall.
was the only clearer, the clearer. So, and he had 40 minutes to spare.
44.
Wow. 44
Something like
minutes.
that. I think it was
Okay.
44. Yeah, I think it was 16. I had 4 hours and 16 minutes.
Okay. So anyway, you crushed
Definitely.
it.
Yeah, I had time
You
to take a
really
shower, get
did pretty
dry.
well. And if you listen to our Mint Springs race ramble, it's similar scenario.
Basically, yeah. We're not going to get into all the details because basically, rewind to Mint Springs. Everything I did there, I did here. The difference on this race is they did give us the maps the night before. And so we're probably going to get into a little bit of that because we had a lot more time with the maps.
Yeah.
And then Min Springs, it was the exact same strategy. But we had very little time with the map, so I had to do a lot more nav along the way.
Yeah. And last time we talked a lot about how did Chip do it? So we know how he does it. We just can't
Apparently,
we just
system's
can't do
working.
it. We know how he does it. We
System's
just can't.
working. Yeah,
Um,
but
and I did pretty well, I think.
yeah.
I was the first solo masters female and the only solo masters female, but I was also the first solo female. So that's kind of cool. Um,
And what
the
about out of all the females, you're second?
so out of female teams,
Yeah,
yeah.
teams or solos. So
Yeah, so Fragile Flowers got me.
yeah, which they're
And
very experienced. They know what they're doing. They're a strong
again,
team.
Anna and Allie and Donna.
Yeah,
Um,
four
and
people against the solo.
well, I don't
Yeah,
know. Anyway, I came into the race thinking I just need to do it on my own, first off, because I'm not quite up to speed with Chip. Well, I've never really been completely up to speed with Chip, but I'm not 100% as to where I used to be. I'm getting closer, but my ankle is um what is it? It's just a little sensitive and running is a little hard on it and particularly downhill running and I'm still a little just protective of it, particularly bushwhacking. So it was rainy, slick rocks, um just that I'm not as good at as I used to be.
and the biking was
I
challenging.
will be at some point, but biking, I feel like I am, I mean, maybe even 99% to where I was, but the trekking is different.
This was hard biking though. It was cold and
It
raining
was
and muddy and rocky,
hard biking.
and it was downhill and slick, and the rocks were pretty big. I mean, there were some baby heads out there, so
Fun. It's like
yeah.
sometimes I feel like the challenge it makes it more fun. If it's just dirt roads and it's raining and you're freezing, your mind is kind of more focused on how much it sucks.
Right.
But when you're doing something challenging and you're, enjoying that challenge, you don't think so much about how much your fingers are freezing. So anyway, yeah, so that was the results. And it was really cool to see so many female teams in general. Like
Yep.
and solos, I think there were five of us maybe. And for a race of that size, that's pretty good. And two full female teams. And there were two young teams
Yeah, there were.
that were mixed co-ed, but young teams that were doing really great and really fun to be around them and see them when I was out there. It was really cool.
Yep.
So that's the overview.
And speaking of young teams, Jesse Tubb is him and Nick partnered up to make Great Adventure Racing, and he does a lot of coaching for these young teams. And we're going to try to get them on the podcast to talk about Great Adventure Racing, kind of I guess we can call it a passion project, but it's like Jesse's really doing a lot of give back to the younger generations to get them involved in not only adventure racing, but just building mental toughness and grit and building confidence and all of that. And so I really want to bring them on the podcast to hear more about their vision and mission for their race company, because it's a little different than just produce a race, and there's a lot of race companies out there that raise money for others and stuff like that. Like Broad Run Off Road, a lot of times they do a lot of give back on their races.
Every
Um,
race for
every
them is a
race.
give back.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's great.
absolutely. So it's really cool.
And I think it showed that their race style is is different. Like it, it was possible to do this race as a beginner, but it was difficult.
Yeah.
And I was kind of just toying my mind like, why do I think it's hard? And there's a few reasons. I think because I was by myself, I thought it was hard. Um, and it's just there's a lot to think about it when you're doing it on your own and the navigation and the weather. And so it was like 41 degrees and raining the whole time.
Yeah.
It's just one extra thing to worry about, like your fingers aren't that available when you need them. And I don't know, it just
And what gear
rain and
choices do you make?
my glasses. Oh my
the
gosh.
glasses are terrible.
I've got to figure
Yeah.
out a no fog situation. And someone suggested a new product. I don't know if I wrote it down. Whoever it is, remind me. See, I don't have a great memory. That's why I stuck to the prologue. Anyway,
But it is hard because like this is one of those races where you know it's going to rain all day. They warned us it was going to rain all day. It's 41 degrees, and so what gear do you take? Like rain pants and rain jacket was mandatory. But I remember right at the start, it wasn't raining like 30 minutes before the start. It was dreary and cold, but it wasn't raining. And then it started to sprinkle right before the start. And I looked around at everybody. They're all wearing their rain jackets. And I was like, I'm about to, my heart rate's going to be rocking here in like 10 minutes. So I was like, I'm not putting on my rain jacket. I stuffed it back in my backpack. So about 5 minutes before the race, I'm down to, I had a performance shirt and I had a wool, like the lightest wool that you can get off of Amazon. And just regular, my favorite women's, what do you call them? Like yoga pants from Walmart that Jesse Tubb and Jesse Spangler got me onto. And I wore some shin guards.
there was an adventure racing
That's it.
discussion about that on the discussion group about men's kind of tights. You should look back at that, see if there's any
They're
other
probably not
suggestions.
$15 and last
People are
forever.
still like, yeah, those weren't great. They're cheap and readily
Yeah,
available.
$15. Yeah, and
Yeah.
they last like I don't know if I've ever thrown a pair away because I've torn them or something.
And you didn't
Um,
change the whole race,
no,
right?
I didn't touch anything. I was so glad with my gear choices. The gloves I wore were fine. The
What gloves did you wear?
some kind of you know me, I'm on Amazon. I get these little bullshit, but it's like they were kind of like neoprene. They were definitely biking gloves. They had the little thing so that it's got where you can work your cell phone or whatever if you needed to. And then they felt like
We should
neoprene.
put the link in the
Yeah,
notes
good.
and
If
actually
they,
do it
yeah,
and not just say we're going to do it.
yeah.
I'll make a
But
note.
literally, they're like cheap $15 gloves, but they were sized right and everything worked. And again, the Amazon wool that I got was super cheap, thin wool, but it was just enough that now like if I'm going uphill or biking uphill, I would start getting hot, so I would just like basically pull up the sleeves. And then when you start bombing hill, I could pull down the sleeves. So I had a long sleeve performance shirt and the wool. So I could basically, I had a couple different ways of, radiating the heat off of me if I was overheating. But yeah, I never took off my pack once during the whole race, and I never changed a layer. Whatever I started with, I ended with.
Well, the same with me. I did not change a thing. I never took my pack off. I started with what I wore the whole time, which usually I have a hard time making myself do that because I hate being cold, but I knew I was going to be running right off. There were a couple of times when I was unhappy with my choice, and I'll tell you why. But what I was wearing was a thin wool long sleeve shirt and my rain jacket, regular leggings, my Moxie shin gaiters, regular darn tough wool socks, regular shoes. Um, so that was it. I wore that the whole time. And it's always surprising to me that 40 degrees can be comfortable if you're moving. Like, I didn't, for the most part, I didn't feel cold at all except for my hands. So the mistake I made in my glove choice were they were just regular bike gloves, like I don't know, whatever cheap Amazon bike gloves, but they got saturated and they're wet. And then anyone who did the race might remember the bike point number 27. It was the furthest north point, and it was a little bit of a bugger. Like it threw me off pretty bad, and I slowed down a lot trying to find it. And so once I had found it, and it was the high point of the race, I think it was at like 1,700 feet, something like that.
Yep.
And so it was the highest we were, and I slowed down, so my core temp drops a little bit. Um, it was actually a fun part too because a lot of people made some errors in there, and I was near the fragile flowers at that point. And I thought that was going to save the day for me. It's like, oh, they're great navigators. Olga's, really good navigator. Donna too. I mean, they probably all are. But anyway, I see them there. They're in a conundrum. I see another male solo. He's he's not having a good time either. I see another male solo. No one is figuring this out. And um, I just the mistake I made was not measuring. I think if I had measured, I would have turned at the right place, but there were more trails. Well, I don't know if there were more trails. I think there were more trails in real life than were on the map. So in my head, I was just like, well, I'm just going to make the second left. So when I made the second left, it wasn't correct or something
Right.
like that. So I hadn't gone far enough. Totally finally figured it out, but I was cold from my heart rate dropping. And then there wasn't an opportunity to bring it back up because there's a massive downhill. So like this is cool. I get to do a downhill. It's really fun. You're going as fast as you can and you don't even really have to work at it. So your heart rate's dropping even more. And the wind is like evaporating
Yep.
my gloves. My fingers are just like starting to get so painful. It's like this has got to change. And I had brought along a thin they're supposed to be waterproof, but they're kind of over gloves that I wished I had put on earlier. But I took off the saturated gloves, I put on these over gloves, and that made all the difference. They're gloves that aren't like they're not tight to your fingers. They're kind of loose, like it's almost like a little bit of air gets in there, and your hands aren't wet the whole time. Anyway, that's the only change I made, and I was able to get them out of my pocket instead of taking my pack off, which was great. But also, right, right after that is where I went to point 24. It was in a stream, walk up the stream, and they used electronic finger punches, and so I didn't want it on my finger the whole time, so I had it in my little um, punch pocket in my backpack that I always zip. But somewhere between that point and the next point, I lost the fingers punch.
Ouch.
Yeah, I kind of blame that my hands were so cold, but that's just an
I think a
excuse.
lot of people are having problems because a lot of them didn't have tethers on them, so that you had to put them on your finger or put them in a pocket. But a lot of them have a tether that you can put around your wrist, so even if it falls off your finger, you find it. But I almost lost it. Like I was high-fiving Nick. Like this was I was on the way back to the TA to do the final bike leg, and I see Nick in his truck, and I stopped and talked to him for a minute, and we like high-fived, and it knocked off the finger punch, and I didn't see it, and he was like, "Dude, you just dropped your punch," So yeah,
Yeah,
it was hard.
I'm gonna have to pay for that. Someone else lost their finger puncher too, so I mean, I don't feel like I was at least the only
Yeah,
one.
physically connect it to your wrist with a tether.
But
That's
then
what
I
we
had to
did.
start taking photos of the checkpoints as
Yeah.
proof. I thought, well, that'll probably work. Um, and that made my hands even colder because I had to take the glove on and off to use the phone. That was a
In the
pain.
rain.
Such a
Yeah.
pain. But I think anyway, back to the point is it was a pretty hard race. And um, when we get Jesse and Nick on the podcast, they can explain their race philosophy, but they do want it to be challenging even for the beginners. So, there were some families there, a couple of dads with a couple young kids, and um, there were some points that they likely got, and they might have had a great experience, but it was a challenging race. I wouldn't say that, like, for instance, there were no points that were right at intersections. Like, you had to know where you were to get the points, and quite a few were quite a ways off the trail. So, but it's challenging. You need some grit to
You need
do
grit.
a grit
They
adventure
didn't name it
race.
that for nothing. Yeah.
Yeah.
But they did do the points thing, and in this race, it was like if you get 1 point for the CP, it was fairly easy. If you get 3 points, it's a pro point. You're gonna suffer. It's gonna be hard, and yada yada.
Yeah, that's cool.
You guys, I think we mentioned it before. We are designing the frozen foot that's gonna be at Pocahontas State Park. I don't know the
In
shipment
March.
date in March. And I've asked Nick, I really want to flip it so that the easy points get like 3 or 4 or whatever. They get the bigger number, and then the pro points get a lesser number, call it 2 or 1. And that way you're incentivizing the new teams to basically go after the big points, checkpoints, and the only the pros, the ones that are trying to clear the course, they don't care what points or what, they want to clear all the points. So they're going to go get that 1 point checkpoint, even though it's 2K out of the way, because they don't have a choice. They're clearing the course. So I think we're gonna flip it and see how people like that, where you are penalized for going for the pro points if you're a new team, because we don't want new teams going for pro points because they're gonna get whacked and they're not gonna enjoy themselves and they're gonna get lost.
I
And
feel
so
conflicted on this one because I think it's natural to assume that more checkpoints means it's going to be harder to do. So we're going to just have to make sure that there's no assumptions being made. It's very clear. We, mention it in several different ways. Make sure it's really clear. And we do need to make sure there's no like unintended consequences
yeah,
in our very specific, this particular race. So, and we're not the only ones that have thought about doing that. Bend Racing has done that,
yeah,
and they did it with the Magnificent last year in a big way. Like we missed a mandatory point that was
100 points.
100 points.
Yeah,
Meanwhile, we got some like 2 point pro points or something.
yeah.
I don't know.
Took forever to get to. I'm like, oh my God. So it ruined our race that we missed one mandatory checkpoint. It ruined our race, meaning the score, not the race
Well,
was amazing.
anyway, it's just the points
Yeah,
were flipped like you're
yeah.
saying, and it was that was part of the challenge for us, not all of it, but anyway, so we're gonna try to think that it's gonna be on March 14th,
Yeah.
and it's gonna be I think a 5 hour option and a 10 hour option
Yep.
in our favorite home backyard park. Um,
Pocahontas State
Pocahontas.
Park, just
It's
south of
not
Richmond.
gonna be as um there's not going to be as much elevation. So
Hmm.
yeah, a little more flowy than this, it's
Yeah. This is some of the best mountain biking trails, in probably the East Coast, but sculpted trails and all of that. But either way, we're supposed to be talking about the
back
the,
to
the 5 hour
the winter warm
winter
up. I
warm
don't
up.
know if we said the name of it. It's called the
Yeah,
winter
we
warm
didn't when we
up.
started.
And we didn't talk about our packs either.
Yeah, let's talk
Like
packs.
neither one of us took our packs off
No.
ever, not even once. Luckily, we didn't need anything in it. Like I had rain pants. I think they were mandatory. There was a space blanket. Actually, I think mine was a space poncho, a minimal first aid kit, and I had another polar fleece layer in case I needed it. I think I had another pair of polar fleece gloves too. Um, so that's what was in mine, some water and a little bit of food. Although we'll talk about food in a minute, but um, I have been trying the USWE backpack, which I have one. It's not the roll top adventure racing one. It's one of the mountain biking ones, which I generally like. It's comfortable. It's got that harness that really stays snug on your upper body, but I found that makes it a little less adjustable. So even though it is comfortable, like I really like how the Out There pack, you can adjust the shoulder straps and the waist strap and the chest strap like independently of each other. And that USWE pack, it's got a strap that's all connected. Like it's one strap. So if you loosen your waistband, you have to like pull up through a side piece to get the shoulders to loosen up. And anyway, it's a great backpack. It's just not quite as adjustable. And of course, the pockets.
Yep.
Out There has the pockets. And
Yep.
so we use the 15 liter. You use that too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you've got the older one that you can adjust it from the
Well,
top
that's because I'm short.
because you're short.
Yeah,
And
I can't
then,
use the one you have because it doesn't cinch down quite enough.
right. So I've got the one that you can adjust at the top of the shoulder straps and at the bottom. But yeah, it's the same thing, little 15 liter, which I can't, I mean, it's a little heavier when it's wet than a whatever, an
Maybe
ultralight
even a lot
pack.
heavier when it's
Right.
wet. But when you don't have much in it and
Yeah, I mean, I train
around.
normally with like a 20-pound pack. I mean, well, in this race, it was probably like water was the weight. And I'm carrying rain pants and a poncho and a first aid kit. So, and I carried a water bottle. Like I was really worried like I would need to get water. And so I had a whole water bottle with the filter on it and I never used it. So,
I didn't
because
take a filter.
yeah, it's cold and wet. So you're not sweating. So I didn't even go through all the water. So my pack could have been even lighter. But yeah,
Well,
they out there packed. There's nothing better than it. I mean, I'm sorry. On these little
that's
races
what I was gonna
that
say.
are short, I'd never use it in expedition. I
Yeah.
use the
The
ultralight pack.
bigger out there packs, expedition packs, they're just awful when they get wet.
Yeah,
So
but for
not for an
anything,
expedition, but for
yeah,
or a short leg of an expedition,
yeah, that would work.
meaning like I could probably use that pack for a 24-hour race if it's fairly good
Warm.
conditions. Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't have to have many extra layers.
Yep.
Anyway, um, the the water situation, I just can't get that right. Like I carried 2 liters in my bladder and 2 water bottles full for a 5-hour race, and I was worried I'd run out. And I get back to the finish, and I've got 2 liters of water
Yeah.
and still some in one of my water bottles. Although I did on the last point of the trek, I realized how much water I still had in my bladder, and I started like siphoning it off, like
Right.
letting it go while I was trekking. I was like, why am I doing this? But it wouldn't come out fast enough, and I was kind of fiddling with it, like, well, I'm just stuck
Yeah.
with it. But I had too much water and too much food, which I should know. And I had very little food. I had 3 of the small size flour tortillas with peanut butter and jelly, and I had 2 Quest protein bars.
That's a lot.
I ate, well, 5 things for 5 hours.
Yep. She started off with a full belly, right? So
Really, we ate at 7 and the race started at, we probably ate at 6 or 6:30 and the race started at 9. So I don't know. I thought I'd eat one thing an hour
right.
and I didn't. I ate one of the tortilla things and I ate 1 bar, and that was after I got to the trek, which was 2.5 hours in. And I
Right.
didn't even necessarily feel like I needed it. Like I wasn't hungry. I just thought I'd better eat this because
You brought it.
I know I better eat it. Yeah, and
Right.
I'm carrying it. What did you do for food?
So I had a plan and then I messed up. Um, I my plan was to use Ben Racing's 4 hour fuel and have like 800 calories in a water bottle. Um, I'm doing a 5 hour race and I ate breakfast and it's only 5 hours. So I was like, okay, so the 4 hour fuel would be that's what really gets me by. And then I threw a few bars. I think I put 4 bars in my pockets just in case I felt like eating something. Because normally I'm no carb.
I took a lot of food and you took 4 bars
Took
and four
4 bars and
fuel.
a bottle of 4 hour fuel.
That's a lot. That's more
But
than I
you made
took.
tortillas. You sounded like you actually.
They're the
Oh,
little ones, like the
okay.
street taco size.
Okay. Sounded better than a bar.
Anyway, go ahead.
So either way, but then I get to the race and I'm like before the race and I'm preparing my 4 hour fuel and I realize, oh, this is before I was a 4 hour fuel fanatic. I asked ChatGPT, how could I make my own 4 hour fuel so that I could train with it without any sugar and stuff? And so I had bagged up some of that and I don't know. I was in a hurry on the way out, and so I ended up grabbing my own Bobo half-ass 4 hour fuel. And so,
We had a brand of
yeah,
fuel, it'd be Bobo fuel.
Bobo bullshit 4 hour fuel with
Bullshit.
no sugar in it, no calories. This is like Chip trying to lose weight 4 hour fuel.
It wouldn't
Um,
smell very well.
yeah, it tastes like horse's butt.
When did you
But
realize
yeah,
it was your own weight
the
and
night
not
before
4 hour
I made
fuel?
it and I put it in the bottle and I shook it all up and I was like, ooh, it's really kind of gumming up in the water bottle. This isn't for our fuel. Like, this is my crap. And so it's all like
Says it's
caked
breakfast
inside the
fuel.
bottle and Andrea's trying to sleep and I'm shaking the bottle and the whole van's shaking. And yeah, so either way, I knew I was screwed on 4 hour fuel. And that's probably why I put the extra bars in because my 4 hour fuel doesn't have calories. It's got like protein powder and
4 hour fuel is not
yeah.
4 hour fuel.
It's like 2 hour fuel. It was like
Anyway,
it's so it's protein powder. What I made it, it was protein powder, it was chocolate,
what it was.
vanilla,
No one's gonna use
stevia.
it. Just go
Stevia.
buy some 4 hour
Just get the
fuel.
real thing. Trust me. Don't screw it up. So either
Yeah.
way, so I had my bottle of Chips Bobo 4 hour fuel and I had 4 bars. I ate like one and a half, a little more than 1.5 bars and drank the full bottle of 4 hour fuel. And I did have some I don't know, little packets of stuff that you put in your water for electrolytes that were like 80 calories each, I think. So I probably
And how
had
much did you
two of
eat, Andrew?
those. I drank I don't know the different size bottles. I guess it's like there's a really tall water bottle and there's a little one. So I
Yeah.
had a little water bottle on my bike and I drank that and I had a packet of stuff in that. So I drank that full thing on the bike because I knew basically when I was rolling into TA, I only needed to bike to the finish and that was going to be 20 minutes. So made sure I drank that full bottle. And then I had the big bottle in my backpack and I didn't even drink that full water bottle. And then I had a whole nother bottle with a water filter on the backpack that I never used. So I just carried around a full, tall water bottle full of
Yeah.
fresh water with a filter just in case I ran out and I needed to filter water. It was dumb.
It's just you get paranoid when you have such hot races and you drink like
Yes.
gallons and then you
Yeah.
have a cold race like this and yeah, it's just true. You just don't drink, even
Yeah.
though
Don't need it.
you should be. But um,
I mean, you're sweating kind of, but not overall body drenched sweating like you are in a hot race. Like, yeah, you got a little bit of sweat on your core because you're wearing wool, but that's it.
for some reason, that reminded me of one change that I did not do that you did. You took your helmet off for
I
the
did. I did.
yeah.
Yeah.
I seem to forget that I'm wearing a helmet and I'm so comfortable with it on that I once again left the TA on the trek with my helmet on. And I even joked with some women before the race that I've done that before, and I I just need to accept that I am going to do this, and that's just who I
You said
am.
Ecuador, you wore it the whole time?
Yeah,
You
four
never took
days,
your 4 days
4
straight.
days.
Never took your helmet off.
But
Yeah.
that's because they required it on some parts of the trek,
Right.
and I didn't like it flopping around on my backpack, so I'm like, I'm just wearing it. So that's who I am. So
Go
if
out
you
there
don't
and after the
recognize
race,
me
keep the
when
helmet.
I don't have my helmet on, I understand because, 99% of the time you see me, I'll have a helmet on.
Right.
And you'll probably think, why is she wearing a helmet in the truck? I mean, it wasn't such a bad idea here and there because it was rocky, like you can see in our photo.
So we should talk maps.
Yeah, getting maps the night before, that
Yeah.
that helps the newer teams
That
a
was
lot, I
really
think.
good for new
That's
teams.
good for a beginner race. But yeah, we took, a fair amount of time and put a lot of details on the map itself. You did that really well. You put more details than I did, and you used your details,
I used it.
which
Yep.
I only used my details here and there, and that's probably what got me into trouble. But why don't you say what you put on your map?
Okay. Yeah, so we had plenty of time with the maps. Although we didn't need to go to bed, so I probably
Yeah.
I could have been sleeping, but I was like, you know what? It's a 5 hour race. I don't need a full 8 hours of sleep. I'll be fine. Um,
Could
so,
have stayed up all night.
could have stayed up all night. Yeah. I ran out of stuff to do, so I had to go to bed. But either way, I started off, I put the clues on the map, which is, I did the same basic thing. Like if you have no time, what do you do first? And so I kind of figure out the flow of the race and then I put the clues on the map so I don't have to keep flip-flopping over to the clue sheet. So that was kind of number one. Um, and then I decided which direction I'm going. Am I going clockwise or counterclockwise? Which in this race I thought was a valuable thing because a lot of these checkpoints are very hard. So I kind of looked at the attack point, like the trek, you could there's a number of different ways you could do the trek, but I went through all the different solutions and decided on clockwise was the better solution, which
They did
was,
a good job though in that there was there was an outlier or two on each of those sections that made it not exactly counterclockwise. So
yeah,
anyway, but broadly
yeah.
speaking,
It like I could have done it either way, but there was this one big stretch between T33, which was like down by the river, and then it was going up to T32, which is like way up high on a ridgeline. And it was a long bearing going uphill through raw woods. And there was a backstop, but it wasn't a great backstop. So I don't know. It was one of those I just looked at it and said, I think I'm going to be better off. The tech points are just a little bit more straightforward in the clockwise direction. So once I had the race flow, I knew which points I was going to get on the bike, which points I was going to get on the way back from the TA. So then I started going point by point and putting as much detail on the map as I thought I needed. So the big three are the elevation, the bearing from the attack point. Like you figure out what your attack point is, and then I went ahead and I took the bearing and on the compass sitting there in the van. and wrote that on the map, and then the distance from the attack point. So elevation, distance, bearing on every single checkpoint that I felt that it was necessary. Because if it was at the end of a lake, you don't necessarily need all that. You just need to find the lake and it's there. But if it was something like it was up on a spur or off the trail a little bit or up into a reentrant, I put as much information as I thought I needed. And then also, since we had the extra time, I also put the bearing that I leave the checkpoint heading for the next checkpoint. I added that bearing and I drew like an arrow on the map pointing so that, like, for example, there was one checkpoint that I knew that once I left the checkpoint, I wanted to aim for a bend in the road, and kind of follow down a spur to get to the next the road where I could then find the next attack point. And so some of these bearings I had the exit bearing already dialed in. So then like all I had to do is punch and I look at the map and I go, okay, I need to be at 92. I dial in 92 and I go. So I didn't have to fumble with the compass on the map and trying to figure out which direction do I go. So I had a extremely detailed plan with all of the possible measurements, both on the bike and on the trek. And then I did my best to execute the plan. Of course, I messed up because everybody messes stuff up where you forget to measure.
But just the
And
fact
yeah,
that you didn't have to do a lot of that in those conditions, like
yeah,
reading those small topo lines and figuring out like which one is the more bold line and how far do you have to look on the map to see what elevation that is, because there'll be like a bold line that has a number like 1200, and then you'll have to find, well, where's the other bold number? And in this case, there were 40-foot contours, and the next bold number was 1,000. So you know that each contour line was 40 feet. So to do that out in the field, to find which topo line you're on and what exact elevation that is, that's really,
with
really
foggy
tedious
glasses. See,
and
I need
draining.
reading glasses, and my glasses, like your glasses, were completely fogged up and messed up. Not once. I like started to race off the glasses, was like, this is useless. They're hanging around my neck, and I never used them the whole race because all the data had already been put on the map by hand in handwriting big enough that I could read it with the naked eye. That saved my ass. If I needed to pull up my reading glasses, clean them off so I could see the map and count the topo lines, I'd still be out there right now.
And even determining a bearing, when you're putting your base
Yep.
plate compass on your map, and making the lines align with north. I mean, that's a lot of fiddling with cold, rainy weather, and
Yep.
it's just that'd be hard.
And
Um,
your map case gets wet. So then now it's like you got these beads of water in your map case. It's hard to see when you're old, it's hard to see the lines in the compass and how to match it up with the lines on the map. And so, yeah, I was just able just to look at the compass, hold it at a full arm's distance to dial in whatever the number is on the compass. And then I could see red in the shed. And so that all of that prep is what made it so that this was a very efficient race for me.
and it's hard to argue that it doesn't work. 'Cause
It definitely worked.
I had a lot of that same information. I did not have the exit um, direction to go from a CP. Actually, most of the CPs, I didn't even have a direction from the attack point, just a couple of them. Um, but also, I guarantee a lot of people would say, I never use an altimeter. Like, why would you need that? And you don't necessarily, but I guess if you want to get as good as Chip, you might as well
You
do
want
what
to
he
win.
does.
It's only if you want to win. No,
He's
but I'm
overrated.
sorry, I'm being a dick. Look, it's basically if you're a pilot, you have this dashboard full of all of these instruments. Why not use them? An altimeter's not that big of a deal. It's on your watch. When you're coming down a hill looking for a CP, you know when you've gone too far. Now, the key to an altimeter, especially when it's bad weather, is you have to continually reset it. So that's another thing I put on the map. As I was planning the route, I would find places like intersections or CPs or whatever. And since each CP had the elevation on the CP, I could check my altimeter, check the map, and I know is my altimeter still calibrated or not. And if not, I would reset it. But there's also places like at attack points going into a CP. I had written on the map calibrate with an exclamation point because like maybe the trail going into it was at a point where it was right on a topo line, so I knew that the elevation was perfectly at 1,000, and so I had written calibrate on the map, so I knew I need to calibrate my watch before I start bombing up this hill trying to find a CP. Because a lot of times my attack point for the CP was a contour line. You just walk up the trail until you get to a certain altitude, and then you contour around and pop the CP. And if you didn't have an altimeter, like I literally like, how did you
So
find the
a
CP?
couple things I think make that risky. Like I didn't want to rely on that too much. Well, mostly because I kept forgetting to recalibrate. And I feel like my brain would short circuit trying to figure out which pieces of information I need to use and when. So that's on me. I need to practice things like that. But they can go off so quickly that there's one that I knew was particularly going to be helpful if I knew the elevation. And it was CP38 if you did the race. It was a trek point and it was quite a ways off trail. And the attack point, it just, I wanted to know the elevation. And I knew my watch hadn't been calibrated. I hadn't calibrated in quite a while. So I just used relative elevation. So my watch said a certain number, and I knew it was three topo lines down, so 120 feet. So I just looked at whatever I was at the time and subtracted 120 and knew that that's now the elevation I had to go to, even though that's not the real elevation. It's just it's not likely to change within a few minutes. So at least it was stable and I could do relative elevation from that. But I didn't use it that much, and I also didn't clear the course.
Right.
It wasn't just because I didn't use an altimeter, though.
Yeah, I guess maybe the other thing is like if you've got the altimeter, it gives you a lot of certainty. So you know, for example, you're walking up the trail, you're huffing and puffing, it's rocky and all that, but you can be looking at the map and calibrating or doing whatever you got to do. And then when you're running downhill, you're gonna bust your ass if you're looking at your map and all that. So I could quickly, like on the Garmin watch with AR mode, I could have altimeter as the big numbers. That's all it shows you is your altitude. And so all I know, I just need to run down this trail. I've got a wrist compass. Like as long as the trail's going south, I know I'm on the right trail, and I'm just watching the altimeter until I start getting close. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'm at my altitude. Now I'm gonna bust into the woods and start heading over for the checkpoint on this other bearing. And so you don't have to stop and look at your map and orient the map and fumble with it. Like you know I'm not there yet. And then all of a sudden, now okay, I definitely am right at the right altitude. This is what should be happening around me. And so the fact that all of this data was on the map and I was continually recalibrating, which I would say recalibration maybe takes 20 to 30 seconds.
That's a
So
lot of data on the map, too. It's almost surprising that it fits. Like,
yeah,
you can write a lot on your map, and of course, you got to be a little careful about obscuring important things,
yeah.
but you can put a lot on there. It's,
Because
yeah.
also, and in addition to all the stuff we just talked about, on little stretches of the map, if I felt like I need to measure, I put the measurement of like, let's say, for example, you're on the bike, you come to an intersection, you turn north, you need to go north for whatever, 750 meters before you turn into the trail. I wrote 750 meters on the side of that stretch. And so there's a lot of other measurements on the map, not even near the checkpoints, just to make sure I got the right trail.
So, how often do you think we've actually had time to
Very
do this?
rarely.
So, we're saying, oh, you should do this, when in actuality, no one's really ever, not
Well,
very often, going to have time. But when you do have time, you should do it just to practice all of the things in your head that you should be doing, even if you can't write it down.
right.
Like a couple times I was looking at what I wrote down. I was like, oh, I'm glad I wrote that down because it's jogging my memory as to what I'm supposed to be thinking about right now. You know, I don't know.
So
It's
two
good.
things on that. And for those of you that what was it? It was in I think it was in Worlds this year. It's pouring down rain. We had made some big errors. And when we thought we might be off the map. And Nick and Dave had been doing the nav for a long time. They're getting a little burned out. Caitlin and I are fresh. And then it started getting bad. And then I think I was like, can I see the map? And I kind of figured out where we were. And then they were like, look, you're fresh. We're not fresh. Like, just take the map. And so I kidded around and said I went all Rain Man on everybody because it was like, as I'm going along, I'm doing the same thing I did in the van under controlled circumstances, but I'm trying to do it in the cold and in the rain. So like I would have somebody like walking, I could kind of follow behind them where I'm looking at the map and okay, when we make this next turn, we're going to go this distance at this bearing. We should be going uphill. We're going to see a trail on our left and then on our right. And so I'm calling out all this data so everybody knows what we're looking for. And so it makes you stay found, I guess. It
Yeah.
makes it so that it's very difficult to mess up, even a very complicated situation. If you're looking at elevation, bearing, distance, and features, and everybody is on board following along, you can do this on the fly. It's hard and it takes a lot of practice.
Well, also, if you're used to doing that, it's easier to do it for every single point. So I guess what I'm thinking is the points I messed up were points that I thought were going to be easy. Like the northern bike point. I thought it was a three-pointer because it's far away. It's on a hilltop. It's going to be physically hard to get to. And on the map, it looks navigationally easy. So I kind of checked out. I didn't measure. I, I just didn't use all the tools that I could have, and I paid for it. And I think if you're just used to doing that,
Right.
and
I got whacked on that one a little bit too. It's like I was not perfect on that one by any means because there was a trail that was not on the map. And so that got me turned around. But I should have been measuring closer. I was like, oh, the trail's on the right. It's about this far, but it was too soon and it threw me off. So but anyway, I recovered
you
quick.
heard it here first. Chip made a
I made a
mistake.
mistake. I made quite a few mistakes. I just recovered quick. And Jesse and Nick, they warned us. They said there's going to be trails that are out there that are not on your map, and there's stuff on your map that are not going to be out there. And that's true in any adventure race.
Yeah.
But in this situation, I normally was able to catch myself before it turned into a 35-minute problem. I usually nipped it in the bud after 2 minutes or 3 minutes, whatever it was.
Well, while we're thinking of that area, another thing to think about while you're prepping maps and getting ready to race is thinking of things outside of the box. And Chip is particularly good at that. So that northern point also, I think, well, I know we went a way that Jesse, he was the race designer, didn't expect. And I do have to say that was my
That was
idea
your
first.
idea. You did, yeah.
Although Chip would have likely seen it too. But I was like, oh, if we go around this way, we're not going to have to do as much elevation loss and gain. And there's a road over here. And so there's a small section where you just have to kind of envision what would be there if the map, showed it. And so there was like, I don't know, not even more than 400 meters that we were
Yeah.
off the map.
Yep.
And since we had time, we did a little research and did realize that it did go off. We even drew in just to be um, just so we would see it on our maps, what it would look like in real life. Like we had time to do that. But that thinking out of the box, you kind of wonder, like, is that okay? And we had this discussion with them, like, should that be one of the rules that you cannot go off the map? So it was a fun discussion. And, of course, that would be a decision race director by race director. And ultimately, we think no. I mean, you don't often even mean to go off the map. So
Yeah, I was worried like new teams that don't know necessarily where they are would go off the map, and then so you don't want to disqualify them. But also, I think a good race director would look at all possible solutions, even when Chip's going to swim across the James River with his mountain bike to shave off 20K. Like
about that. You've had some times where you did some very unexpected things.
Yeah.
But you weren't breaking the rules.
No, you always have to stay within the rules. But if
they knew you were going to do that, they might have put a rule against it.
Correct, absolutely.
So, for example, crossing the James River.
The quote is, "There are no rules in adventure racing unless there are rules." So you start off
quote when we say that.
me,
Chip Dodd.
Me. So that's
There
my
are no rules
philosophy.
unless there are
There
rules.
are no rules unless there are
So
rules.
are you a cheater?
No, because
Just kidding.
like
There are no rules.
like
You're not breaking
for
them.
example, if they said you are not allowed to go on private property, especially if there's a sign, well then I don't go on private property. But if they don't say that you can't go through private property, then I'm taking my chances on getting shot in West Virginia. But whatever, we do it. But I guess yeah, when we did the race in Belize, I don't know if we call it lost, but we're in the middle of the jungle and we
You
can't
need
find a
an
trail.
error in in
Yeah,
navigation.
navigation. But we ended up in a river that was deeper than expected, and we learned that mountain bikes float. And we were on uh what's his name? Randy Erickson's podcast TA1, and we told him like, yeah, 29ers float. Like this is, this is how it's done, right? But either way, the bike will lay on the water and not sink. And so we floated down this Belizean jungle river as part of our, bailing us out of this problem with navigation. So from that race, we knew that 29ers float. And so yeah, so for example, we were doing, I can't remember what the name of the race was, but it was Adventure Addicts. So this is Michelle and Liz, and we really wanted to win it because there was you get a free entry to the national championships if you get the top three-person co-ed slot. And looking at the lineup, we were like, we have a chance at this. So we were looking for any hack that we could possibly find.
And you raced with, wasn't that Sam?
Yeah, that was Sam
And
Prestige and Kathy Huberman.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I wasn't able to race that race.
Right.
It was just the three of you, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
just the three of
So
us.
go ahead.
So we're looking at the maps, and I don't know whose idea it was, probably me, but I don't know. Yeah, it's probably me because I
Wow.
remember both of them going, "Are you sure?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I think this is a great idea." So but basically James River doesn't have a lot of crossings, and there was some points on the other side, and everybody I think had to go down to a bridge or something. And I was looking at the map, and I'm like, if we just swim across the James River, which is class one whitewater, it's pretty wide, pretty long, and the water's flowing. I was like, if we just cross across that river and figure out some way to bust through private property, which are mostly fields of corn or whatever, like if we could do this, we cut off like 20 or 30 kilometers of riding. Like this is going to be brilliant. And they were like, I don't know. And so either way, they agreed to go along with it. And I went and got some compactor bags out of the van, which we had for adventure racing, where you can put your backpack into a dry bag basically. And so we got all these compactor bags and we got down to the river and we looked both ways like, I guess we're doing it. And so we three of us, we put our bikes in the water, put our packs in our thing, and the bikes float enough that you can put your pack on top of the bike, and then you kind of like swim across like you're pulling a dead body across, or you're saving somebody that is drowning. And we went through the whitewater, and there's a little island. We got on the island and rested for a minute, and then went the rest of the way. And sure enough, we got across the river and celebrated. And
What did your teammates think of
they
that?
were traumatized slightly.
Were
They,
you?
they they're probably still doing bike maintenance from all the rust and water that got into their bottom bracket and all that stuff. But either way, we won and we
Would
got
you
our
do
free
it
entry.
again?
Well, I mean, it depends on the stakes of the race. Because if it's worth the winning, we got $900 towards the national championship, so that's worth a bottom bracket on a mountain bike.
I think you just wanted
So
to tell the story.
it worked.
It's a good story
Problem is
too.
there's lots of different stories of us doing dumb stuff during races.
Well, let's hear
But
one more.
what's another one? What's there was the one that you have it on here, unexpected portage. There was one where there was a big kayaking section during this 24-hour race that this is another Adventure Addicts race. And Rootstock they had the best hack. They brought their portage stuff, and instead of doing the paddle, they ran the canoe up and over this mountain on wheels, which I wish I thought of that. That was brilliant. But I looked at it, was like, you know what? The water goes all the way around, but I would just go up and over this hill that was like 1,000 feet or something like that with
A
my boat
lot.
solo. This would be great. So I tie the boat around my waist and slid the boat up this hill that was like extremely dangerous. Like if it broke free and that boat came going down the hill in the leaves, it would have been going 100 miles an hour and killed somebody.
Even going
But
down the other side, if it was
yeah, you had to
that
kind of
could
turn
be
it
really
around.
dangerous.
Yeah, I had to kind of like some of it I'm pulling the boat back as it's sliding down the hill. But either way, I get to the other side and I'm paddling to the point and rootstock's coming at me and they're like, "How'd you get here?" Like we're coming in odd directions. They know I shouldn't be coming from the direction I was coming, and I shouldn't be there because they had portaged around. They should be in front of everybody, and they saw me like, "What are you doing here?" I was like, "I just went up and over, like with my boat, you know." I don't know. It's just there's I don't know. You just always are looking for a way. Can I swim it? Can I climb over? Can I do something, anything to cut off time?
So is this a lesson for race directors or for racers?
Yeah, yeah. So all race directors should look at their map and go, okay, what would Chip do if there's a hack? Like what if you're an idiot, like think like Jackass, like the movie, or what's that one? The Nitro Circus? Like what would Chip do? And so
A
maybe it
double
was
backflip over
yeah,
the
right,
bridge. Well,
right.
it is kind of funny because we were chatting with some folks, and one of the volunteers that's been at a number of different races that we've been at, he's like, "Yeah, this one guy went down and used the railroad tracks, and I just couldn't believe he did that. We never thought he'd do that." And Chip's like, "Oh, that was
Yeah, I think
me."
that was a yeah, but yeah,
Was that?
we totally used the railroad tracks. They didn't say we couldn't. It's illegal, by the way. So you should not use the railroad tracks if you are a law-abiding citizen.
Did you
But
know it was illegal?
yeah, totally. Well, I used it in that other race at Pony Pasture
And it was
with a
illegal
pack
there,
raft.
or it's
Yeah,
illegal
especially when the
everywhere?
trains go by, they're honking. I get the hell off my tracks. No, you're not allowed to be.
Oh, I'm not doing that with you.
No,
I think
it's totally
illegal, you draw the line.
no. Like
Even if there's
no,
not a rule in the rule book for something
like the
illegal.
train's gonna stop and arrest you. I mean, you're just running down a train track with a pack raft. It's like,
Well, in all fairness,
no.
that should have been a rule in the rule book.
Right.
Like it should
Then
have
put it
been like
I wouldn't have done it if thou shalt stay off the railroad tracks other than official road
thou
crossings,
shalt.
then I
Would you
would have done
prefer
it.
they use language
They
like that
should. It'd be like the
in like
Bible,
real
Ten Commandments. Stay off the
really?
railroad tracks.
Okay, we need to
Wasn't
move
in the
on.
rules.
We're moving
Sorry.
on.
Whatever it takes.
Moving on. Uh,
I've never been
what else?
arrested in an adventure race or shot, although it's been close a couple times.
So, we've raced solo a couple of races lately. We're going to be racing the Chill, an
Mhm.
Adventure Addicts race. They're great races. That's 2 weeks away on January 24th, and it's a 10-hour race. I think they have a shorter version option too. And we're racing solo again. Um, why do you think someone should, like you, should race solo? What did you
Well,
learn? Are
yeah,
there
you
still
learn a
things to
lot.
learn?
Yeah. Well, you learn where your limit is, right? Because you're when you're solo, you are pushing everything to its max, especially if you're trying to win. You're mentally as challenged as you could. Like if you do a lot of everybody in adventure racing should do orienteering. Find an orienteering club, go to orienteering because it's you the map, and you know if you're fast, you basically have an hour to blast through the woods like a gazelle trying to find checkpoints. And it's really hard because the higher your heart rate is, the dumber you get effectively, the more errors you make. So then you add on that you go to an adventure race. The maps aren't as perfect as a orienteering. Now you're carrying more food and water. You have your bike. You're going for 5 or 10 hours or whatever. So you're mentally, you're physically challenged. I mean, just you're challenged on every single level. Um, and then if you're pushing hard enough, towards the end of the race, you are you're let's just say you're biking up a steep hill. You might have to get off and push because your legs are so blown from the trek section that when you normally could ride your bike up the hill, you can't ride your bike any harder. Like, you are
You
giving
say
it everything.
that is shocking when Chip
Shocking.
has to
Oh
walk
yeah.
his bike.
Yeah, yeah. So I was yeah. So
For others of us, no big
so
deal. But
then
anyway,
like in I like biking. I probably do most of my workouts on the bike, and so I'm a strong biker. And so I'm a lot of times in big races, especially, I'm breaking the wind for everybody, and they're some people have a little hard time on the bike, and you just think to yourself like, God, we're going so slow. Like, what's the problem? Like, and then there during this race this weekend, I was like, oh my God, if Aaron and the broad run off road people come around the corner, I just can't put any more in. They're gonna whoop me. 'Cause, I mean, I was like literally worried if I saw another team, I couldn't give it anymore. I am going as fast as I can, which was slow towards the end of the race because I was cramping and had some other stuff. I was really pushing hard on the trek going up and down the hills. So I think it's smart for everybody to do solo racing or do orient. I mean, orienteering is not long enough to really get blown out because it's only usually an hour, hour and a half. But after, when you're 4 hours in pushing hard, you've blown through the glycogen in your muscles. You're having to fuel and you're having to digest food with a high heart rate. And so you can start experiencing some problems in a race that's only 5 hours long. And so I remember just thinking like, okay, I can now I've learned my lesson. I can empathize. I too have been there where I am going slow and I cannot go any faster. This is it. And I am praying that that team does not come around the corner chasing me to the finish because I can't give it anymore. I'm doing everything I can. I'm whooped and that's it. And yeah.
Yeah, I think that empathy, it's kind of funny that that's what you learn by racing solo. Like you'd think you learn empathy by racing as a team, but more often than not, you have to use empathy and recognize it and that you need to use it in a team. But when you're solo, you really do. I think I'll be better at empathizing. Like I always think, oh, I just it's taxing to navigate
Yeah.
and try to go fast. Like the combination and just having it all on you and thinking about everything, it also makes me empathize with all of the other team roles that I don't usually have. Like, oh, this is what it's like. Yeah. So obviously, I have been tapped out in races before and I've given it all I've got. And I am probably the one where people are thinking, gosh, like we're going so slow. Why can't you go, faster? So, you can empathize with that more, but now I can empathize with, oh, there's a lot going on and,
Mhm.
um, but when I race by myself, I do push, but I don't push as hard as I could when I'm with other people. I don't know why. Just like people go away and then I'm just kind of having a nice time in the woods and I try to go fast, but but then then the clock starts to play a factor. And that's when I really, really pushed really as hard as I could. I was like, well, I've got like half an hour left in my, till my self-imposed cutoff to get on the bike to get back to the finish. And I was deciding, do I go for these 2 points or not? And I decided to go for one of them. Had a hard time finding it. It was kind of far away, but it was a 2 pointer. I'm like, okay, well, I got it. And I'm just going to head back. And on the way back, I see where the attack point is for the one that's kind of on the way back. And it was at the base of a cliff across a stream and I see one of the attack points go by and I'm disciplined. I'm like, nope, I'm not going to do it. I know I could go that way right now, but I'm not. And I saw another guy do it. I'm like, and I even encouraged him to do it. I'm like, no, I'm not doing it. But then the second place where I knew I could attack it from, he was just calling my name. So I'm like, okay, I've got it. I'm already working harder than I had been because now time is a factor and now I'm pushing myself. Like I was kind of just playing around here and there, but now I'm pushing 100% as hard as I can go for the last couple of points. And I get it. And the, I, of course takes longer than I think it will and it's a bushwhack all the way back up to the TA, and I miss my self-imposed cutoff, and I know I've missed it. Like, oh, okay, now I don't have 30 minutes to get back. And I'm like, oh, well, then I just won't get that one bike point. There was one bike point I saved for on the way home. I'm like, well, no big deal. I just won't get that one bike point. And then I've only got 15 minutes to get back to the finish. And I'm like, oh no, I don't even know if I'm gonna make it. And then I get to the TA and there's only two other bikes there besides mine. And I'm like, oh no, I'm gonna be the last one, So I haul butt out and I'm just pushing, pushing, pushing. I think I had,
Uphill.
oh, it was uphill.
Uphill the
A
whole way
small
back.
downhill, two
Yeah.
small downhills, but all the way uphill. And I'm just like, I gotta at least try. You never know until you try. And so I just pushed so hard. I mean, hard. I rode all of I didn't walk anything. I was afraid I was going to start cramping, but I didn't. And I'm like, I'm just going to do what I can. And I was 2 minutes late.
And you usually give me shit for being late.
And that last 2 pointer, like I knew I shouldn't go for it. And I did. And yeah, no, I didn't have enough self-discipline. So anyway, all of that self-control, self-discipline, all the decision making, it's a good reason to race solo and um, a good reason to get back on time because I lost 2 points. It was 1 point per minute to lose. So that kind of stinks, but
Yep.
good learning experience. So what's coming up for us?
A lot, right? We talked about having the chill. So we're going to do that solo again. That's at Bear Creek Lake State Park, which is also a little bit west of Richmond. And then we do the frozen foot. Now we're the race directors, but that's going to be fun putting all that on. Hopefully everybody comes out to do that race. It's going to be a lot of fun. The short course is going to be very easy. Like we're not making that to whoop you. But the 10-hour, we are putting some points out there that are going to be quite difficult. So for the people that really want to challenge, come on out.
There's going to be some fun strategy too.
Oh yeah.
And great mountain biking trails, flowy, well made. Hopefully it won't rain.
Yeah, there will be. I know we're going to try to bring Nick and Jesse on to talk through the race,
Yeah.
but basically we're coming up with stuff that may not have ever been done. Meaning course strategy wise, where there are unlocks, where if you make certain time cutoffs,
Are we gonna
things
do
happen.
that now?
Do it later. Okay.
Well, we
Either
should
way,
save all that.
it's gonna be fun.
But that's directly after the Magnificent in New Zealand.
Yep.
The big race, the big test for me especially. Will our team DNF?
We're not gonna
If we
DNF.
do, it would be the first time in a very, very, very long time. We
Yeah.
have DNF 2 times before, years ago. We're pretty durable. We haven't DNF'd a race in years.
Yep.
Anyway, if we do DNF, it's because my ankle couldn't handle it.
Well,
And
any big race is hard and anybody could fail. I know you were concerned about
it's
your
true.
ankle because New Zealand is very hard. It's a long race. It's very steep terrain, and um, Jason and Chelsea and his brother Andy are like they're known to like you. They like skip TAs. So like, oh, instead of having a TA, you're gonna do the pack raft and your bike at the same
No,
time.
not this year. They
Not
said
this year.
not
Oh,
this year.
well, I'm ready for
No,
it.
I wouldn't
I'm gonna.
put it past them.
I'm training with heavy weight and a heavy bike because I have this weird feeling that it's going to be hard physically.
Yeah, well, I'm doing as much as I possibly can to be ready, and I'm getting there. It's just we'll see. I mean, I've never been more unsure of how my body's gonna do, except for maybe on our first couple of long races where it's all an unknown. So thank God I already know what I usually feel like in a long race. So if indeed we need to stop, then it's catastrophic. Or it's extreme sharp pain, not just the stuff that is no big deal that I could recover from and just work through. Anyway, I'm excited about it and I think we're going to do great. I
Yep.
should leave it at that so that I don't sound so.
And then we
worried.
have after New Zealand, we have Break the Habit. What is that, 50 hour?
I
It's
think it is between 24 and 30 hours and it's going to be revealed later, which
okay.
and
That's
it's
right.
also an Adventure Addicts race in West Virginia. And what's exciting about it is
This is a shakedown for our World Championships team. So we have this year will be the first ever for this ability. We have two teams going to World Championships. So this is a lot of fun.
that's a pretty big dream of ours, like to
Yeah.
have more than one
More
team
than one team.
at any given race, but to have two teams at Worlds is really cool.
Yeah.
So on our team in the shakedown race for the Break the Habit is me and Chip and David Grabiner and Kevin Keck. So we've not raced with Kevin before, but we've seen him around. He races as Royal Elks a lot. He's done the Ecuador World Championships and a myriad of other races too. So that'll be exciting. And on Disability Grit, that's their team name, is Nick Herf, Caitlin Thorne, Mark Miller, and Patrick Truxes. I don't know if I said his name right, but um, that's just super exciting. Patrick is new to disability. So out of the 8 of us, 2 people are new to disability, and the rest of us have been, intermixed in different team configurations for different races here and there. And we're super pumped. Should
Totally.
be really, really cool race, and really excited that we got in. It was a little bit of a um, confusing registration process. I almost thought it was kind of maybe it's just hype. But no, there's 85 teams registered right now and 10 on the waiting list. So we feel really fortunate to have gotten in and, understood the
Yeah, we
registration process, and enough people bugged Chip to get it all sent off.
I do have to thank the team for bugging me, but either way, I put in the registrations into Google and set it to send exactly at our time, 6 a.m., which was 12 o'clock in France, apparently. And so our registration would have come in exactly on time. And then Nick sent an email ahead of time saying, hey, by the way, Chip's getting ready to send in his email. And he set it to send 5 minutes, I think, before the race or before the cutoff for the registration. So we sent it in and CC'd Heidi as the CEO. Like we wanted everybody to know Disability wants 2 teams, even if other people have to be on the waiting list. But really, we've done these the last couple world champs. The one year we did it in Africa where you had a handful of teams that got together from all around the world, really, and we kind of hung out on the way to the race and the way back, and that really, I mean, the race was fun, but just the hanging out with the other teams on the way over and back was really fun. And then in Ecuador when we did that world champs, Louis Bekdash, one of our teammates, had put together a big tour. And so now again, we're on a bus, we're doing all this really fun stuff. We got to hang out with Fear Youth, which are, celebrities at this point. And it just was a lot of fun. So the thought of taking our team, which we've, our team's like probably there's, we probably raced with 25 people, but there's like,
Based.
you know, 8 core people that have raced with us on a regular basis. And so we can't just put together a 4-person team because you leave out other people. And so this is really cool that we got 2 full teams going over there. And then we're going to absolutely hang out together on the way over, on the way back, and then during the race be competitive and try to beat each other, which would be super fun. All friendly competition.
And there's at least a handful of US teams of people we know. That's just really exciting. It's such a cool atmosphere. Like when we all know we want everyone to do well and have fun, but we're all also competing with each other. It's just really cool.
Yeah.
It's a really
And we all know
great
each other's
feeling.
secrets, right? Because we've all raced together before. So it's going to be like they know how I think, I know how they think. And so it's going to be fun kind of being competitive between the 2 teams. But either way.
Yeah. So exciting year.
What else?
I think that's all we got tonight. We've been talking a long time about essentially a 5-hour race.
Well, hopefully it's good learning for folks. That's the thing. We want to get people into adventure
And there's
racing.
no race that's too short to be excited about and to
Right.
be like reflecting on and learning from. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Okay.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Yeah, thanks. Do the like, subscribe thing, tell your friends. We also have a YouTube channel, so go there if you want to see some videos of our past races. We try to document most of our races, not the 5-hour ones, but all of our expedition races. You can go on there and watch videos and see what is it like to race in Africa or Ecuador or Croatia and any of these crazy places that we go. So thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please take a moment to leave a rating and a comment. To find additional content, including the video versions of these discussions, you can search for Disability Racing on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram.
We hope this podcast inspired you to focus on your abilities and plan your next adventure.
See you on the trail.